Today, we're going to dive into a book that completely changed the game for how we think about art. It's John Dewey's 1934 masterpiece, Art as Experience. This book proposed a totally radical new way of looking at beauty, and more importantly, where we can actually find it. So, let's be honest for a second. Have you ever stood in one of those really quiet, kind of sterile art galleries, staring at a famous painting and just feeling nothing? You know, like you're missing the big secret everyone else is in on? If you've ever felt that, then you've felt the exact problem Dewey was trying to solve. Dewey believed that our whole culture had developed this massive blind spot. He called it the museum conception of art. And for him, this was the #1 reason we struggle to have a real connection with art. This right here is the core of his argument. Dewey pointed out that big historical forces, like nationalism and the rise of capitalism, basically turned art into what he called art products. They became these static objects, symbols of wealth and status, locked away in museums, totally cut off from our everyday lives. They were things to be owned, not experiences to be lived. And this quote from Dewey just nails it. In his own words, art was put on a remote pedestal. This created what he called an esoteric idea of fine art, making it seem like something that was only for experts or the super rich. It drove this huge wedge between art and just life. So what was Dewey's big solution? Well, it wasn't about just rearranging the paintings in the museum. No, it was way bigger than that. It was about completely blowing up our definition of what art even is. And here it is, the heart of his entire philosophy. Dewey said, listen, art isn't a thing, it's not a noun, it's a verb. Art isn't the physical painting or the marble statue. Art is the dynamic, fulfilling experience that happens when we engage with the world in a certain, special way. Now, he was super specific here. He didn't just mean any experience like brushing your teeth. He called it un-experience. And that little word, un, is so important. It signifies a moment that has a real beginning, middle, and end. It feels whole, complete, and it stands out from the blurry background noise of our day-to-day routines. This is where it gets really cool, because he uses examples we can all get. Think about a conversation where you and a friend are just perfectly in sync, or the amazing feeling of finally solving a puzzle that's been bugging you, or his most famous example, that meal in a Paris restaurant that you remember for the rest of your life. For Dewey, all of these are an experience. They're all, in their own way, art. So what is it that makes these moments so special? What's the secret sauce? Well, Dewey actually broke down the anatomy of what makes an experience feel so satisfying and whole. It turns out every aesthetic experience has its own little story arc. It starts with an inception, some kind of spark. Then comes the development, the middle part. And this is crucial for Dewey. It involves this dance between doing something and then undergoing the consequences. We act, and the world pushes back. It's in working through that resistance that the experience builds towards its fulfillment, a powerful, satisfying ending that ties everything together. And it's not just a smooth ride from A to B. Dewey was clear that this is a process of accumulation. Each step doesn't just disappear when the next one happens. No, it gets carried forward, building on top of what came before, gathering meaning and momentum along the way. He even had this cool idea about rhythm. He hated what he called the tick-tock theory of rhythm, just boring mechanical repetition. For Dewey, real aesthetic rhythm is organic. It's functional. Think less like a ticking clock and more like the beating of a bird's wing. There's this gathering of energy, then a release that propels the whole thing forward in a beautiful, dynamic way. Okay, so if art is really about having these kinds of complete, meaningful experiences, then what's it actually for? Why do we even need it? According to Dewey, art isn't some frill or luxury. It's absolutely essential. Its job is to grab hold of those special and experience moments and make them even clearer, even more intense. It's a kind of communication that goes way beyond words. And ultimately, art serves life by hitting the reset button on our perspective, making us appreciate the world all over again. I mean, this quote just says it all, right? In a world that's so full of divisions and misunderstandings, Dewey saw art as the ultimate bridge. He believed that when we truly engage with art from another person or another culture, all those walls just dissolve. We get to see through their eyes and hear through their ears. Now, Dewey wrote Art as Experience almost a century ago, but you'd be amazed at how relevant his ideas still are. This book didn't just gather dust on a shelf, it made serious waves. As soon as it was published, it shook the art world. By the 1950s, you had giants like Robert Motherwell and the abstract expressionists calling this book their Bible. And fast forward to today, his philosophy is literally the foundation for an entire field of study called everyday aesthetics, which is all about finding art and beauty in our normal daily lives. When you boil it all down, Dewey's great revolution was that he made beauty democratic again. He yanked art off that high and mighty pedestal and put it right back into the messy, wonderful world of our common experience. He basically gave all of us permission to find the artistic in our own lives, in our jobs, our conversations, even a good meal. He taught us that art isn't just something you go to a museum to see, it's something you do, it's something you live. So the real question he leaves us with is this: now that you know what you're looking for, where are you going to find it?